Welcome to Produce Talks.
This whole business is based on relationship and friendships.
Food is darn simple.
What can we do? What are other countries doing?
How important it is for industry to be talking about this.
We're going back to the farm. We're going back to the whole food.
Hi, I'm Wally Burns, the Education and Training Manager at CPMA. In this episode of Produce Talks, Dan Duguay, CPMA's Sustainability Specialist, leads a discussion with Tom Pierce of Sobeys and Matt Aronson of Verdant Technologies. They provide their insights and use a specific example about how sustainability can be enhanced in the fresh produce supply chain. Specifically, they discuss a broccoli supply chain pilot project between these two companies. You can subscribe to Produce Talks on Apple Podcasts, Simplecast, Spotify, and on most other podcast players. Welcome, Dan, Tom, and Matt.
Thank you, Wally. I'm Dan Duguay, the Sustainability Specialist with the Canadian Produce Marketing Association. And today, our podcast will explore some exciting developments that are increasing the sustainability of fresh produce supply chains. Although we'll be focusing on some market-leading innovations to improve the sustainability of the broccoli supply chain, many of the developments, the lessons learned, and the insights you're going to hear about today are arguably beneficial to other produce commodities. This innovative broccoli supply chain pilot project was one of the leading use cases highlighted at the CPMA's recent International Sustainability Summit this past April in Vancouver. And one of the key takeaways for me was how it addressed not only one, but multiple sustainability outcomes from water usage and transportation efficiency to shelf life improvement and packaging waste. So it's a great example of how to think about sustainability of the fresh produce supply chain, which should be one of the key sort of main takeaways for our listeners listening today. So let's get to it. So I'd like to start by introducing our two speakers today, Tom Pierce of Sobeys and Matt Aronson of Verdant. Gentlemen, welcome to Produce Talks. Tom and Matt, I'd like to kick us off by inviting you to describe your role at Sobeys and Verdant respectively, and your role in this exciting broccoli supply chain pilot project. So maybe, Tom, I'll start with you.
Great. Thanks, Dan. So my name is Tom Pierce, as you said. I am the National Director of Supplier Development and Direct Store Delivery. It is the team I oversee that works directly in the fields with the growers all across all different growing regions. As I started in this project, I would like to first probably start by saying that I would like to recognize the Sobeys family and the leadership for fostering a culture of encouraging each of us to improve the way that we do things here at Sobeys. It was this that allowed me to the privilege of working with all my colleagues to from start to finish on this great innovative project.
Very cool, Tom. And Matt, over to you.
Yeah, well said, Tom. Dan, thanks for having us. I guess first of all, Matt Aronson. My role at Verdant is on paper Chief Revenue Officer, which practically speaking, I think about it in a couple of ways. Number one, I manage a great team that is responsible for the entire customer life cycle. So that is marketing, sales, customer success. So all the work we'll do, whether it's early stage or really kind of getting in the weeds and, rolling something out, working cross-functionally with our technical and product teams, et cetera. So that's the team that I manage first and foremost. And I think for me, instances like this, I get involved in, I'll say, strategic partnerships. So I think this work with Sobeys is a great example of that. And as I'm sure you'll hear a little bit more today, Dan, for you and your listeners, this has been a journey that both Tom and I have been on along with our teams for over 2 years now. And, so I guess that's kind of where it started, not knowing exactly where it would end over a couple of years ago with Tom. And we had an in-person meeting at a trade show. Those trade shows go. Everyone says all the right things and no one ever follows up and nothing ever happens. Well, I guess if there's anything, this is an example of sometimes things do happen and it can take a while, but here we are.
So to get us going, I'm going to ask sort of the 30,000 foot question. What's this project about? So Matt, maybe in 30 seconds, what are we basically talking about here in terms of this broccoli supply chain project?
Yeah, Dan, in a nutshell, we are together as partners here reimagining the broccoli supply chain. And that is with our solution, Harvest Hold, it's an in-box solution to extend shelf life and freshness. And we're using that extra time, at least part of it, to take ice out, which has been for decades the solution for freshness to broccoli. So in a 40-pound box of broccoli, half of that weight is ice. Our product works by blocking the impact of ethylene on commodities like broccoli. And so by putting our sheet in the box in the bottom, it allows the grower shippers to send that broccoli to their customers like Sobeys without ice and deliver the same or better quality. And what we've actually seen, and maybe we'll talk about today, is how, in fact, we see some extended shelf life even beyond that. So no ice and an extra, 5+ days. So anyways, that's what we'll maybe get into a little bit today with your listeners.
How did this all start? So can you describe what was the genesis of this pilot project? Kind of what was the idea or the innovation that made the project worth pursuing? Tom, maybe that's more sort of to you in terms of, hey, there's something here to pursue. And given its innovative and I'd say if not disruptive proposition, how did you actually get it off the ground? So just share with us how this kind of got going.
So as Matt was saying, about 2 years ago, I was introduced to Matt and we started the conversation. He provided a lot of background data. They had worked with different, I think, universities, if I'm not mistaken, across the United States on this. Really had some good data points, and we just continued to look at it, continued to have the conversation. And then, of course, as I approached my company to say, hey, listen, I think we have something here we might need to test, bringing others in. We just saw, there was real great potential. And some of the first things that we looked at that we were really actually interested in was really looking at how we could just improve quality and shelf life, which, is value to a customer. And then it was through all of that we ended up seeing a whole lot of other things that really worked out well. But as we continued to move down this path, we started testing. We started doing some real world tests, wanted to get the Sobeys QC, wanted to get their feedback, started bringing product in, wanted to make sure that we brought the farmers in as well. And we were starting to work with different growers across different growing regions with different varieties of broccoli, different distances, to make sure that this was something that was viable and that could be used time and time again. And it was easy for the farmers to use, and it was easy for our warehouse to work with, and it was easy for our store associates. And it was really just a long 2-year project where we just kept testing, retesting, bringing on other growers, and it just became more and more exciting as we started learning more and more about how this process was. We started seeing just the sustainability factors in it, not just the shelf life. And that's where, for me, it was really eye-opening. And we can, get into some of those things and some of the other questions.
Thank you, Tom. How about you, Matt? How did you see your sort of role play in getting this off the ground?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of the same things Tom said around, collaboration with our teams. I think that was really a hallmark of our success, leadership support, believing, that whether that's the Sobeys family, leadership at Verdant and Gulf Tech, just around, kind of the values of the organization. It takes a patience to really, stick with a project and see it all the way through. So I would echo all those things. Maybe more, from my perspective, approaching everyone knows who Sobeys is. People are still getting to know who Verdant is and our product Harvest Hold and how it works. And as Tom mentioned, before that first meeting, we had done years of development work, just on broccoli, not to mention other commodities. And I remember probably in those early meetings, Tom, presenting to you a handful of different commodities we could work in, peaches, cucumbers, you name it. And so pretty quickly converged on broccoli. I think this idea of removing ice, really stuck, had a nice hook to it, and people could understand the value very tangibly. But, from my perspective, the learnings when I think about it, Dan, it's how to approach a potential partner like a Sobeys. I think, it's got to make sense for the business and really being able to communicate it, very simply. Those are some of the things I reflect on. I don't know. I'm sure I'm leaving out a lot of details, but we'll get into them here as we keep peeling back the layers.
Yeah. Well, on that, I think obviously these projects getting off the ground is one thing, but as they get underway, there are these sort of indicators, these moments where you're like, wait a minute, we're seeing this. So as the project got underway, what were some of the leading indicators that told you that you were onto something both innovative, but obviously highly disruptive? Were there things in particular that you went, okay, this has been validated. Now we're onto something, or, hey, now we're seeing this for the first time. Just curious, Tom, maybe again, being sort of the receiving end of this technology, which we'll come to on the next question. Were there any sort of indicators that kind of gave you that sense of, yeah, we're onto something really good here?
So I think when we started shipping some of this product, after getting the feedback from our growers, and then we started shipping this product, almost immediately our QCs really, and I think our director of quality control, I think, said it best. This is a game changer, and this was their observations as they saw it from what was coming across, the warehouse and on these trucks and coming up to them from a long distance away. A lot of broccoli for us for most of the year does come from an import. And it was really exciting to see that, really nice to get that feedback and to understand that, hey, there is something here about quality and condition that we're improving. Some of the other things that were really exciting and I think really, let me know that we were going on the right direction was, not only by reducing the water, are we, saving water that's really precious, at farm level, but also too, we're taking it off of the floor. Like, anybody who's ever been in a produce warehouse, when broccoli comes in, it drips all over the place. It causes a lot of accidents at warehouse level, so a lot of personal injuries to people who get injured. That was the other thing is our warehouses were coming back, absolutely, in love with this product because it really reduced cleanup of all the water. It reduced, injuries. And so we got a lot of feedback from the warehouse just on that aspect. And then we also saw this at store level as well, where stores were coming back. Hey, the boxes are lighter now. We're able to have more people, lift it. We're not having any water on the floor at our store level, which is also another huge aspect. So as you start to kind of see these indicators, and you're like, wow, this is a little bit more than I was originally anticipating. And then you start to think about, not using that water at farm level to put on a truck that goes up the road and then, of course, drips all over the bottom of the truck and drips all over everywhere, as I just described. So now you're saving that water for the farmer to use on his or her crop, which, let's be honest, there's a lot of droughts going across the world, and this becomes very crucial. And then you start to look at the fact that, when you do up cubing a truck out with as much product as you can get on there. And now you can get more because you've reduced the ice weight, and now you can add more broccoli. So now you're reducing the overall logistic cost to doing business. And that has benefit right off the, right there with, now you're not, using as many trucks. I think we hypothetically say, well, we don't hypothetically, we do know it's for every 3 trucks that we used to use with ice, we now use 2. So that's one less truck on the road. And then, of course, as you mentioned earlier, there is just being able to now where we have growers who are exploring not using waxed box, which, of course, has to be thrown in a landfill. And now they're looking at being able to use something that's more recyclable, which, once again, is that sustainability. So it was really one of these projects where it was just like it just kept checking the boxes every time we turned around. And I think that is one of the most satisfying parts of this project.
That's very cool, Tom. And great segue, I think, to the question more for Matt, because this whole use case, this whole pilot's really been enabled by Verdant's technology and this sort of supply chain transformation, Matt's being enabled through your technology, and one which obviously brings a number of sustainability benefits while we understand not contributing really to the concerns of packaging waste. So can you share sort of what the technology is and how does it do what it's doing? And obviously, any thoughts in terms of that multiple sort of sustainability benefit, which I know we'll come back to in a moment, but just how that technology really is key to this success.
I appreciate you asking that, Dan. I'd be remiss to not nerd out for at least a second. But before I go there, just to add on to Tom's point, and it's one of those situations where I love being able to say, you don't have to take my word for it. Hearing you heard it from Tom, and we've heard it from the Sobeys team, just, the benefits, how we prove this out. I think what I would just add briefly there, Dan, in terms of those leading indicators, which I think are really, really important for projects, innovation like this, to not put all your eggs in, the one basket of kind of a singular lagging indicator. Like, are we on the right path? And oftentimes with projects like this, you got to work the kinks out. You learn through the process. So having those leading indicators, I think, are really, really critical. And I think it's something useful for many others out there that are thinking about innovation and how to partner, for them to really ponder. What I would say, there's the way I kind of think about it in terms of the data, the leading indicators, I think about in terms of like the hard data, the quality, the side by side. And Tom, you mentioned like in the DCs, doing those quality evaluations with the team. And that's like the real hard data, which is certainly a big part of this. Then you also have, I'm going to call it like the semi-qualitative, let's say, feedback from those stores. I mean, Tom, you said it, like, I think the biggest supporters from day one for this initiative were those folks in the DC, as well as the back of the store. If you've ever dumped the broccoli box out, you got to take the ice, put it back. I mean, it's cold. It's a pain in the neck. So again, how do you put that on a spreadsheet? But we tried to capture that with some surveys. You want to share that feedback. It's really critical, that leading indicator. And then last but not least, just, I'm going to call it that sentiment. Again, kind of a data point of key stakeholders, leadership, like maybe a little skeptical at first. I might put Tom in that bucket among some of his colleagues, but really kind of tracking and understanding how key stakeholders, how they're going from maybe skeptic, to believer. And that takes time, and that takes all the data like we're talking about. So those are just some things, generally speaking. Doesn't have to be broccoli, could be a different commodity, whatever, that, I kind of looked at, and we sort of looked at through this in terms of, indicators, are we on the right path? But Dan, I digress from your question around the product itself. Like, what is this innovation? What are we talking about? As an organization, Verdant, this product we're bringing to market is called Harvest Hold. And like the name kind of suggests, the idea is to kind of hold that harvest, that fruit or vegetable, in that, more optimal state before it goes bad. And so this idea of like shelf life extension technology is not a new idea. And in fact, the underlying technology that it makes up Harvest Hold is also not a new technology. It's off patent. And so what we're doing here is leveraging that technology that's been used for decades in other commodities like apples, et cetera, and delivering it in a different way. So I like to describe our technological platform, if you will, as printing a gas onto a substrate. And so if you kind of think about that, my engineering brain, in this case, the gas happens to be this gas that's well known and proven for shelf life extension of fruits and vegetables that are sensitive to ethylene, which is not all. So you've got your non-climacteric varietals. So people, there's always a wish list of what's next. And sometimes it's a good fit, sometimes it's not, right? There's no silver bullet. So any fruits and vegetables that are sensitive to ethylene, we got a shot, and in terms of making an impact. And then how do you deliver that technology, this gas that blocks ethylene? But how do you do it and print a gas on a sheet? And that's where, I can't take credit for that, innovation. That's our science team, material science team. But it's really important. What's not, there's, patents and, intellectual property, et cetera. But what's really critical there is the whole rationale or kind of inspiration behind that was like, how do we deliver this technology in a simpler way? And I guess the hypothesis was that would be the unlock for certain commodities or certain supply chains where the technology just couldn't fit, previously. So that was sort of what drove a lot of our development work, Dan, here at Verdant over the last, 5-10 years, well before we ever had that first conversation with Sobeys. So this sheet is torn off of a roll, much like your paper towel roll at home. It's pre-perforated. So as Tom said, makes it super easy for the growers to work with. And, we think about the materials used, in that roll. We think about the whole process around this from like a life cycle assessment standpoint. We want it to be easy to use. We want to minimize environmental impacts. And so that sheet is torn off and it's put in the box. The gas is released. It blocks ethylene. And that benefit stays with the broccoli or stays with the cucumbers. And that's where you see not only the ability to remove ice and all the benefits that come from that, right? 9 liters of water per box. You do that math times 1,500, 1,600 boxes in a truck, 13,000 plus liters per truck times however many, trucks over the year. So a lot of water saved, a lot of trucks off the road, as Tom mentioned. And so that's how the benefit kind of flows through the system with that simple sheet placed in the box.
Very cool. Again, it's an example, and I remember when you presented this at the Sustainability Summit, and Tom, you've sort of spoken to it, the multiple benefits that this technology brings to the broccoli supply chain. Given these significant impacts and these promising results, what's next for this project, and how do you see it being rolled out across the Sobeys supply chain? And what are the opportunities for other vendors, retailers, broccoli growers, those who grow, ship, and sell broccoli to benefit from the lessons learned of this innovative approach?
No, great question. I think for next step for us, obviously, I don't want to get into all of our secrets and how we plan to use this. We obviously want to keep ourselves moving forward. But we definitely plan to bring this across with all of our growers. It is very important that our growers have buy-in and that they understand what the technology is, and that they are profitable as well. So it has been a little bit of a slow rollout to try and go as close to 100% as we possibly can, because we are bringing on all of our suppliers and making sure that they're comfortable. It is very important that early on, and I'm going to praise Sobeys for their culture and not wanting to force things on our partners. And we've really taken this approach that we want to make sure that we bring everybody along, because we know once everybody gets this technology and learns about it and feels it and works with it, that we know that they keep coming on and they keep looking forward to working with us on it. So our goal is to work to being as much 100% with this, but we do realize that there are gaps within the supply chain where we're still going to have ice, so it's not going to be 100%, but we are going to continue month after month, year after year, to go as close as we possibly can to this as it is. And that's one of the reasons why also too we're also talking about it, because this is one of those things where we didn't want to ask for exclusivity, because if we really want to do what Sobeys always says is our part, then it really is about everybody having this technology, the growers using it for everybody. If we really want to make a difference in sustainability and doing a lot of those things, then it really is about everybody taking advantage of it. So as farmers and everybody continue to use this is a big portion of where we're going, so that everybody can take advantage of the technology, and not just us here at Sobeys.
And I think, Tom, that's a great statement of where Sobeys sees sustainability and the benefits, right? Is I remember when you mentioned it in Vancouver, the non-exclusivity. So, this will obviously benefit yourselves, but it will benefit the industry at large. And again, just points to the fact that there are these innovations that are really impactful, again, because of those multiple benefits, again, as you've well outlined. Maybe this can bring me to sort of one of our last questions is, although this project focused on broccoli, and I think, Matt or Tom, you mentioned earlier that there was maybe a conversation around what you would pilot. What has been the impact on the thinking about what might be possible to enhance sustainability of other fresh produce supply chains? Just curious what this has given both of you in terms of insights, and kind of what's next in terms of these kinds of benefits maybe coming to other commodity types.
We've obviously had conversations with Matt. We are looking at other commodities, and we're excited to see where the other possibilities are. I don't want to get into all the little things that we do, but there are a lot of other items that this product can really help improve. Let's be honest, really, when it comes right on down to it, if we can get a longer shelf life and get a better eating experience for our customers, and have a value to it, and reduce food waste, it's just a win-win all the way across. So we're excited to continue to keep testing and see which other commodities we can move forward with it.
Yeah, well said, Tom. Dan, I would kind of like Tom saying it's there's work behind the scenes. Rest assured, a lot of conversation around what's next. And honestly, I think what's maybe more exciting or maybe relevant for your listeners is not so much what are items kind of 2, 3, 4, 5, but just, that the approach in general, as we're talking innovation here, how we spend a lot of time and focus on broccoli. And even within broccoli, I think what you're hearing from Tom, there's still more work to do with the rollout. Can we remove these wax boxes? There's still a lot of peeling back those layers within broccoli. And that's, I think, what we're realizing. So we're committed to continuing to do that work. But I think what it's given us, at least from my perspective, is a great foothold, and we built trust around this work. And so I think what that does, it's so easy for, I'll be the first to admit, for a company like ours with the technology that while not a silver bullet, has applicability in a lot of different areas, a lot of different commodities, to want to chase a lot of those opportunities, probably bite off more than we can chew. And I think what I've certainly learned and appreciated through this process is, what do they say? Like, it takes time to save time, or, whatever the saying is. And that is like, investing this time, it gives us a path on broccoli to continue to roll out and expand. But I think what it also does is it's built trust amongst our teams, at every level. And so I think when you look at kind of in the field with Tom and his team, with the quality folks in the RSC, with Verdant's technical team, I think what that does is it allows us to not just pursue a what's next in terms of items, but like do it in a more accelerated fashion, because you have the relationships, you have the trust, like the ways of working. I mean, a lot of, I think, the learnings for me and for us at Verdant has just been that, Sobeys is a partner. How do they operate? What's the best way to, engage and work with them? And that sets us up well for whatever commodity we may pursue moving forward. And I think that's just, again, just to kind of reiterate, Dan, a really critical takeaway to build that trust. It takes time. It takes a long time to build, but you can lose it very quickly. I think we all know that, whether we're talking broccoli or anything else in our lives. And so I bring that up because there is that, we feel the momentum, we want to jump into other things, but we do want to do it in the right way, where we have alignment, we have data to back it up, because the last thing we want to do is, impact any of the trust and, that we've built over these couple of years with broccoli, and instead look at it as, again, a great foothold for us to explore what's next. And there's, I think, a lot of excitement to do so. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think, Matt, when you say trust, again, there's the trust that you've spoken to between Verdant and Sobeys, but there's the trust that the supply chain is doing what it needs to do, right? And again, this being so disruptive and really quite innovative, it's that, hey, there is a better way, there is a different way. And this will sort of bring me to my last question is, this again is a project, it's a great example of what the fresh produce industry is doing to address the many sustainability challenges it faces today. Again, food loss and waste, ensuring shipping efficiencies, which Tom, you spoke to directly, addressing packaging concerns. So as such, I'd like to close off our Produce Talks podcast today by asking you to give me kind of your elevator pitch response, because I'm sure you get asked like, wow, you guys are doing this. But really this question, like, why should the produce industry, government policymakers and regulators, and even consumers pay close attention to a project like this one that's being undertaken? Like, why is this such an important project for the industry, government, policymakers, and consumers to understand and really take note of? So maybe Tom, starting with you.
That's a big question. I think when you look at projects like this, and you don't know what you're going into when you start, as we've talked about, but we want to make sure that we're not handcuffed to certain outcomes because there's a preconceived notion of what should it be. As we need to see where innovation comes from, and then how that innovation can be used. And I think it's important, all across the whole industry, that you let the data and you let the innovation, flow as it normally would be, and don't try to hold it back or try to push it in different directions. Like, let it be patient and let it develop as it is. Because, and I'm just going to speak from my side, not from that side. Early on, I was very, very doubtful that this was going to be a project that was going to make it all the way to the end like it is, because we get pitched a lot. And I think for Matt and his team, their patience and belief in what they were doing has not only just allowed them to continue the testing and get to where we are, but because we weren't pushing an agenda or a belief that this is how it was by either side, And we ended up learning so much more and understanding how this is really affects sustainability and safety and all these other things. So I would really caution everybody to make sure that as they go into projects like this, to be very open-minded and let the data go and determine where you guys go.
Very good, Tom. Thank you. Matt, how about you?
Firstly, and I'll just rattle off and then maybe just a couple quick words on each. But, first of all, like the model of innovation. Secondly, I'll say environmental impact. And then third and last but not least, industry leadership. So I think on the model of innovation, at least from my perspective, the way we think about it at Verdant is much like Tom said, to kind of borrow his phrase, Sobeys' phrase, doing our part. How can we, as an innovator, Verdant, with our solution, share those learnings and experience with others? Because again, there's no silver bullet here. We live in a world where, how is it? This question keeps me up at night every night, that 1 in 8 people go hungry every night, where we're throwing away 1 in 3 pieces of food. Like, how is that possible? That's one of the things that really motivates me. And I know the work we do at Verdant. And so how can we, look at this at Verdant as almost like a blueprint or kind of a playbook for how others might innovate with Sobeys or other similar partners to do this the right way and to make, let's say, to create lasting change. And it's not just Sobeys, the trust piece too, Dan, it goes all the way back, all the stakeholders, importantly, the growers. I think I'd be remiss to not, of course, acknowledge and mention we wouldn't be here talking about this, Tom, right, if it wasn't throughout the grower partners that we've had through this process. So I think, that model innovation, doing our part. I think the environmental impact, Dan, the saving the water, the trucks, how do we as our elected officials, et cetera, think about those benefits, and really look at the whole system. So we're adding something in terms of packaging. Like, I think rather than drawing the box around that in and of itself, like what are kind of the net benefits here if we look at the whole system, taking that kind of systems approach, very data driven. And I think when doing that, like Tom said, keeping an open mind, it can lead to outcomes that are kind of create this net benefit for the whole system. And it's funny, we're talking here just after the Olympics have closed. One of the ways I like to talk about the environmental benefits of the work we're doing, all those water savings, to put that in perspective, just over, let's say, a year shipping, broccoli into Sobeys now without ice, we could fill up 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools with water. So anyone that was watching the Olympics in the pool, think about that volume of water that we're saving, especially for a lot of water-stressed areas. And so, model of innovation, environmental impact, and last but not least, and, in industry leadership. And I think this is where I got to give, Tom and Sobeys a lot of credit. This notion of doing our part and not holding it close to the vest, but wanting to lead and show others the way. I just, for me, this food system we live in and work in and rely on so much, I think it takes really a system-wide commitment to drive change and to innovate. And I think increasingly, Dan, I think we talked about this back at the summit even, and I've been inspired by leaders in this space that have kind of, I guess, changed my perspective on initiatives like this, that, sustainability, I think increasingly we should think of as a pre-competitive opportunity, or some of the issues that go along with it, food waste. Reducing food waste is a pre-competitive issue. And it's something that all of us in this industry should be good at and should be striving for, together. And I think the leadership position, with Sobeys here is a great example of it's the importance of leading and kind of getting that first domino, and then really, let's say, enabling and empowering others to come with us on this journey.
That's great, Matt. And I think with that, I'll just say, first of all, thank you to both of you for sharing your insights and your excitement about this real market-leading innovation to improve fresh produce supply chains. It's what we heard at the summit. It's what you shared today, and I'm sure our listeners will be excited to consider how your insights and even the approach you've taken could help shape their thinking about how to improve the sustainability of their supply chains. So with that, thank you for joining us today on Produce Talks, and we'll wish you both a great day. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And to the listeners, thank you for listening. Remember, you can subscribe to Produce Talks at Apple Podcasts, Simplecast, Spotify, and on most other podcast players. Until next time, fill half your plate with fruits and veggies, continue to seek out new knowledge, and basically never stop growing.